And when you are considering choices, how do you observe you choose? That
That's
is
it.
what I was observing this morning in the silence. Yeah, thanks, Heinz.
Real deep. How do I
Mm,
observe? Hmm. With my heart.
mm.
Mm.
I
My
don't think
choice.
that is our default.
My choice is what feels right to me.
Yes. Now, so good. So what feels good? And so when you're observing the choices, what about that?
Hmm.
Considering them, what I notice is that I usually consider two choices, which is what I was considering today, as if there was only two.
Mm.
A or B. And then A is further along, like it's a real possibility. Sorry, A is a real opportunity. B is yet a fantasy. Or better yet, probably a possibility. Meaning it isn't even a choice yet. So there's a place to be, well, do I want that one to be the choice?
Mm.
It would have to get to another level. It would have to progress further to be a possibility, to be an opportunity.
Mm.
But in my choice, it didn't matter.
Hmm.
As I was observing the choice, it didn't matter because I was already assuming that it was a choice. Meaning, I was putting them on equal levels and comparing just two options. And then, like you, Heinz, which one feels better? Which one, quote, feels right?
Also, since they're both in the future, I would look at the road I need to travel to get there.
Yeah, they'll do that one too, right? And then the consequences, like what choosing this one over that one over this one.
Yep.
And remembering, I mean, what came up for me as you were saying that last bit, Jesse, was remembering that I'm making the choice for this moment and that it can be changed at a later point. So if I go with the possibility, no, if I go with the, how did you phrase it? The first one, A was,
Opportunity. It has real structures. Like it's
yeah. So if I go, if I go with that one, But the second one is really what my heart desires. Is there not a way?
Or my ego really wants it.
Good point. But who says it is your ego? You say.
Could be. It could. My point was just to pull the separation.
Yes.
Because the ego is doing the comparison.
That's right.
So as I observed, as you saw, I went from the choices to which one would feel better, which would give me the better feeling, which one feels right. I think that's the best way to put it. Now, could another way to do it be, what is the feeling I want, to start there? And then, do you see how I'm focused? We're focused onto the feeling, like the outcome, the opportunities, what do I really want from the combination of those two positions, those two opportunities, potentials? What do I want from them? And what would that feel like? How would I know I had it?
By the clarity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what comes to mind for me, by the clarity of what you want to be.
It's the be, do, have that you put in there, right? The be, do, have. That is be, do, have, where I was the do, be, have. That's what I was doing. I was doing it, and then I'll be it. Or do, have, be, probably a better way is do, be, have. Do, have, be. There you go. Do, have, be.
That's a problem-solving structure, right?
That's right. Yes.
So, in our observation, I mean, what's valuable for me from what you've said is that bit about observing how we make the choices. And so I would think our first step is always to remember where we're observing from.
Good. Mm-hmm.
And that's difficult because sometimes you don't feel it. But if you remind yourself how you could feel before you do anything, in terms of thinking or doing.
Yep.
I was listening to something last night, and it was a yoga guy talking to a youth congress or something like that, and he said, if you're not joyful, you're not going to learn anything of real value. And if you go to work and you cannot work lovingly, your work is not going to have much value. And for some reason, it resonated very, very deeply for me in that moment, because I wasn't experiencing joy or loving kindness. I was neutral, but neutral without without spark, without motivation, without surrender. And just hearing those words switched it for me.
Mhm.
And then I could remember.
And then did you have it?
I think so. I woke up this morning with an owl tooting away in the woods. I haven't got a forest close by, but I've got a lot of trees. And I haven't woken up early enough to hear the owl for a long time.
My point was, when you see, or like you were open enough to hear the message, you instantly said, oh, like, yes, I know what that spark is. And did it come? Sometimes it comes instantly, and sometimes it comes later. Like, not that it matters. It's the awareness is what's important. It's that pause, which is when we're considering choices. It's the pausing, or what we're observing causes the pause. We need to pause to observe. And what are we pausing? We're pausing the program that's running without us even knowing it. Which lines up with the program. Is the simplest way is, as I was doing it, I observed, do, have, be, in terms of my choices. So if I do this, like, which choice will I do? What will that then how will I have it? Like, what will I have then? And if I have that, how will I be? Like, what is the feeling behind that? Or the opportunities, yeah. Which is that is a problem solving structure, yes.
Yeah.
Morning, Craig. Which I'd rather than have, it's like be, do, create.
Yeah, are you saying do, be, have is a problem solving structure? Is that what you're saying? So turn it around.
I'm saying the structure that I was in, that it appeared to be a do, have, be structure, is a problem orientated structure. That's the way I was approaching when considering choices, as I was doing this morning in the silence. That is what I noticed, is that I was choosing, or my ego was considering two choices, this one or that one. Very limited, very limited. And that is what I was doing. And then I would say, what would that give me? Or then I was running the outcomes, right? So then I would run the outcomes of what would each one of those benefit or be for? And it was that. So for me, that goes to the have. So what would I do? Then what would I have? And then how would that make me feel is how I was looking at them.
Yeah,
It's
'cause I
just
was
very
taught to do it all
constrained.
that way too.
Yeah, I think that's how I think that what my point was is that's how I observed myself doing it. And then I think that that's what society had taught me, right?
Yep.
And I even think if we switch it to do, be, have, but that's still in my mind, it's the be is limited by the doing, which is still a problem solving orientation.
Yeah.
As I looked at it, I said, well, if a feeling, if how I want to feel, or the opportunities, or all the things that I like, the benefits of choosing one or the other, if those all came first, then I could look at what choices. And the choices would be endless then. It'd be open. It wouldn't just be two. Now, what would be fixed? What would be limited? What would be focused? What would be focused is the feeling. And I think that is a good thing to focus on, a good thing to limit. If there was something in the formula that needed to be limited, which there always is when we put a focus on something. Because ultimately a focus, even choosing how I would feel, is a choice.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
just
which-
what I was observing in the silence this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were talking, what kind of hit me is that if the doing comes first, then you end up getting caught up in the minutia, you know, the detailed crapola that may or may not be necessary.
It's harder to find that spark, that motivation, the mobilization.
Yeah.
As Allison was speaking about. And then I found it just amazing after my silence and came into the chat and saw her phrase for the day is be, do, manifest.
Mm.
Say another word, be, do, create.
It reminds me of I have a quote from Jesus that says, "To him who has will more be given." And I don't profess to know what that actually means, but it's really, really curious about it. Because I like Allison's take on it too, but the have part is missing, and I just try to figure out where that fits.
In a translation.
Yeah, exactly.
Good evening, Allie.
Elian, good morning, Craig.
Good morning.
Hey, Allie, welcome.
Thank you. I like the sound of that, Craig. Can you say that again?
Yeah, we were
bit
playing
from
around with the be do have.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard it or not, but that made me think of there's a quote.
Yeah.
A quote in the New Testament about that Jesus said to him who has will more be given.
Who has more begun.
And when you
So
think
anyway,
of
I've been kicking that
has,
around for years.
if you think of the has, what things come to mind when you think of has? And then so that has, you'll get more of.
So for me, that quote speaks to matching vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you feel it, it manifests, kind of thing. Like, yeah.
Good. I go to possess and own. And I think that's a way it can be interpreted, which is different than what you're speaking to.
You know, it's interesting when they went to feed the 5,000, the first question he asked the disciples is, "What do you have?" And they say 5 loaves and 2 fish. And it's almost like he says, "Okay, good, we can work with that." You know what I mean? So like what is available to you at this point? You know, it might even be a question like, okay, so what's your current reality?
Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking, like, what's behind that to even ask it? Like the current reality before that, right, is a group of hungry people. And must be an intention to serve behind it. The do and have are things that we can see. We can point to. The being aspect we can't point to very easily.
Yeah, here's another curious thing is another time when they're basically in the same pickle, he throws it back to Philip and says, well, you feed them. As if saying, you have everything that I have.
And of course, he was always a demonstrator of that. You know, from the story point of view, and then us doing that in our lives. Yeah. There's definitely, I mean, that still points to the being aspect of it, right?
Yeah, to me, part of the being is knowing what you have, whether you see it or not.
Mhm, mhm. Now, Allison, go back to speaking of the matching frequencies. The manifestation. I think that aligns with the be, do, have, like to say, what is the feeling? Feeling to me is frequency. What is the feeling of that? And feeling that, you will get more of that feeling.
Mm.
Good and bad. So often we think of more as being good, but it could be, like you said, you noticed you were in a neutral to negative, right?
Mm.
Drudging through, how I listen to it is you could almost be drudging through the work, right?
Mm.
Realizing that the passion is and could be there, it just wasn't there in the moment. And so if we're drudging through our work, you know, or our opportunities or life, then we're going to get more of the drudging of it.
Yeah.
And if we're passionate about what we're doing, for being passionate about what we're doing, you'll have more passion for what you do.
Yeah. And it's the experience of living that is that we get confused with, I think.
Confused or unaware or just stuck in it, right? Like,
Yeah.
but tell me more what you mean.
No, I think that describes it pretty well.
Mhm.
I think the other thing that comes to me is about how fine the different layers are of our choices. I'm not sure how to verbalize the exact layers. But it's just my experience of it. So, when one example would be this, what you did this morning was, so we had the silence, and then you asked the question, how do you observe yourself making the choice? And that's a very different layer from how do you make a choice? So that's a great example of what I mean.
And by observing yourself, you actually do both choices at that time when you're observing it.
Exactly. So another way in which I can put words to it would be I think I spoke about it about a week ago in terms of meditation. So you can give yourself 3 points, or let me put it this way. So you start off and there's the silence, and then there's the experience of the silence, and then there's the breath. And then there's the experience of the breath, and then there's the sound. And then there's the experience of the sound. And then you have yourself watching all of those experiences. And then you have the experience of watching yourself, watching all of those experiences. And I'm sure there are many more layers to this. I mean, I stuck with 2 for decades. And when I say stuck, I don't mean that I felt stuck. I just that's as far as I could experience it. I don't know if this is making any sense. Sorry.
Mm.
So in that, the question of what am I is very useful and leads. And the what am I speaks to the being. What are you experiencing in the moment? Are you giving yourself the fullest opportunity to be what you are capable of being. And in some ways, I mean, I'm talking to the experience of being at that moment in time, which, of course, that's important because that leads us, but it's also it can also be pretty limited.
Thank you for sharing that, Allison. An observation. And it's aware, not pausing and just asking, where is that limited? Because we are so much more than the limits that we create.
So talking about experience, it also reminds me of that saying, this too shall pass.
Yeah, we've all done something we regretted. That too passed, right?
Yes, and to be reminded that when you're in that, excuse my language, when you're in that shithole, it passes. And when you're on top of the mountain, it passes.
Mhm. And everything in between is the rest of the time.
Yeah.
I'm starting to realize that these things come up to, so I can make a decision about whether I'm going to engage with them or not. Or as Allison said, let them pass.
Mm. Yeah. And if if you let them pass, what choose to engage in them rather?
I found in a
Yeah.
lot of cases it's kind of a waste of energy. to engage with things, with certain things. So I'm kind of learning to have the wisdom to leave certain stuff alone. That's the minutia I was talking about. The stuff that gives your brain chatter.
The ego aspect, the ego self-talk. And that's what can be the internal chatter, the internal ego self-talk, the talking version of ourselves that is there in the silence. Used to be nonstop for me. And I think it still is, just not to the same degree. Meaning it doesn't run the show like it used to, or as much as I let it in the past. Everyone familiar with what I'm talking about for themselves?
Yes, and
That,
that's
that one that's
been a big shift in what it's actually saying up there.
mhm. If not, it's what that's saying right there in the silence. It's what's saying when the question's answered. Not what is spoken out loud, it's what's said inside, in the head.
Well, you asked the question about our own experience of dropping the ego. And I think that's, for me, that's what I love about the mornings. You know, yesterday when Sandrell said how it felt for her, being able to always come on, that it was always here. And as she said it, I thought to myself, what is it that's always here? And it's the space, it's the valuing of the silence, which allows for, it allows for our egos to go chat, 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 chat for sure. But because we're together and because our intention together is to focus on the be, what is it that you want to be? Because of that intention, there's a focus on the heart. And it's an open structure, makes space for creativity. When I know the times where I have to miss the morning, where I do my meditation on my own, and the group's not together yet. It's very different to when I can do it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes before I start with somebody. If I start at 8:30, then I don't come on. And then like 3/4 through the day, they'll feel like something's missing. And what's missing? And then I realize, oh, I wasn't in group this morning. So generally speaking, I know that I have to, as Craig would say, I have to engage with a routine to give myself the opportunity to share heart space, I would call it.
I'm finding that when I give attention to being in a creative space, that there isn't any brain chatter in that. But it's something that I really got to practice.
Yeah, what I find is rather than the brain chatter leading, right? The brain chatter is interpreting the feeling of the heart or the feeling of the moment, the feeling of the now. It is deciphering, it is translating. That's how it appears as I when I'm in that space. And then practice holding that all day long, which, like Heinz said, is that's where to be the heart leading. Well, that is very different than what I've conditioned myself to live. But to put that as the lead, and then with the chatter is just to decipher the information, the message, the information, the data, the word, because that's where I can make sense of it. That's where I've operated so often. And that's where we all operate is in our words.
That's well described, Jesse, for me.
I was crafting a response to an email and conversation. And so it was in one of the opportunities that I was speaking about this morning. And I went to their culture, like I was looking at as I was making an offer, we were engaged in a transaction, if you will. So I went to I knew what I wanted and I know what they wanted. And so I went to their culture page. And I crafted my email all following their culture. Right? What they're doing, what they claim to be doing. And one of their taglines was rock the boat, engage, and embrace change. And by the way, this is a government agency.
Boy, are they, do they know what they're in for if you engage with them?
Yeah, yeah.
No, they don't.
Yeah, there's something a little twisted in
they
there.
don't. No, they don't. They got a taste of it yesterday, though.
Now
Wow.
they're sure they want you to rock the boat.
And so it was in a sense it was no, you don't move up for 3 years like as a promotion wise.
For
and
3
it just-
years.
Yeah, right. It's like, okay, rock the boat, huh? And it's just the stupid structures that we just put in place, right? So,
Comical.
right. And either way, it gave me a space to speak about a couple of things, and what I referenced was rock the boat, engage, and embrace change. I took the moment to speak to my offer.
Good.
We
Good.
can change the oil industry. We can change the emissions, which is what they care about. And I aligned it to all of their goals. Just as a highlight, like this is just a piece I'm bringing. No.
I would love to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Not to. And I mean, it's. Yeah. Well, I don't. It's a whole lot of work for a salary I got that I started out of school with 20 years ago.
Well, what it brings to mind, Jesse, is they put the words out there.
Yep.
So they're going to get more of what they put out.
Well, here's the difference. It's what do we think that means? What do we
Yes.
expect that means?
Exactly. Yeah.
And there is I mean, the reason I brought that phrase up is that the silence brings forth a beautiful example of those three things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because it's like rock the boat. Well, I told them let's sit in silence for 10 minutes in this meeting. Holy shit! Do you think that would rock the boat? Let's not say anything for 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
10 minutes is way too long, Jess. 5. Go for 5.
All right, but and then all of a sudden it's number one. Is like, and so that's just saying that, right? That gauge. That didn't gauge what was already there. So your automatic is all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have to go into the silence. Well, all we have to do is talk about it, engage it, right? And people will say what they say. And it's like, why did it have it say that?
Mm.
Because that is what we're engaging in. You're not even aware that you're engaging in.
Mm-hmm.
But that is your pattern. That is your automatic. And then you say, now, what does it mean to embrace change or to engage change? Whichever one it is. It's like, oh, but if you keep running that same shit, it's not going to change. So they were asking what value could I bring, right? That would be higher than an entry level. It's like, oh, that's fucking right there. Because I wouldn't have been able to do that right out of school 20 years ago.
I think you can help them redesign their questions for candidates. And they're asking somebody who's got your kind of experience, they know what your CV is, and they're asking what you can bring that is different from an entry-level engineer.
I don't
Doesn't
think they'll hire that. I think, yeah. I don't think they, I don't know. We'll see.
No,
But
you
yeah,
never know.
there's all sorts of, it'd have to be a good change for them to want to do something different.
Mm.
Creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurial spirit are also parts of their mission and culture. So customer service is number one.
Mm.
Anyway, I'm just using it in practical terms. Because that was what was in my thinking, in my space, in my silence this morning. And that phrase kept coming up to speak it. So that was the best I had to speak around that phrase in the space we had. Which speaks to knowing what you have, right? Craig,
Yes.
and trusting it, going with it, and not being attached to it.
Yeah, that attachment. I'll say this about attachment for me, often, most of the time, not most of the time, always, I would say, I can't think of one example where it's not like this, in other words, sorry. I only realized that I had the attachment once it's gone, once I've let it go.
Mhm. Yep.
Wow, that's an observation.
I give an example of that. I think my son, right? He's just learning to drive, and so he went with the instructor for 4 hours before he could be approved to drive with the mom and dad. And so he's driving with me, and it's early on. And we're in the number one, like the slow lane, right? The right-hand lane in a 2-lane road. And he is hugging the dotted line, right? The left lane. So he's hugging the second lane. And I'm like, why are you so close to the second lane? And he said, well, that's what the instructor told me I needed to be. I said, okay. I said, which one, where is it safest to drive? Because my point is to bring the focus back. It is safer to be closer to the shoulder than it is to that middle lane, that next lane.
Yeah.
Unless there's a bike, unless there's a bike rider. Yes, I got it. Like that. That's the only time that's not safe. So I said, so if she, because it was a her, if she is right, well, then what you tell her is say, I'm not comfortable riding there. It is unsafe for me.
Nice.
You aim it right at safety in a car with an instructor that's teaching you how to turn. There's no way that they can tell you no. That's the power of when people speak, Allison, as you say, when people speak their culture that they, quote, live by, operate by. As soon as you come and circle it back to that, you will always be in the position. As long as you can demonstrate it, as long as you can stand behind it with integrity. But anytime you bring that out, that's the power and importance of knowing these goals, these missions, the company's values, because more often than not, you can speak to them and they won't. That's fun. That's intention. And it's easy to put focus on it and practice it. Just most people don't realize how important it is.
Exactly.
Not important of where the focus is, of what the self-talk is saying, what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking about rocking the boat, right? Engage and embrace change. And it's like, yeah, we'll do that to a point that it's comfortable.
Yes.
But as soon as it's uncomfortable, we won't.
Hence, you have to wait 3 years for promotion. Doesn't matter what you bring to the table. You got to wait 3 years for that promotion.
Just rock the boat enough so a couple of people falls off.
Yeah. Exactly.
You got an
And then I was
opening
thinking,
there.
yeah, yeah. And then I was thinking, it's not like I care about changing the phrase, but it's like, I was thinking about rocking the boat, and it's like rocking the boat there's nowhere is that ever really safe to rock the boat. It's like, what a stupid saying that is.
Yeah.
If we're on a lifeboat in the Titanic, right? The Titanic just got done, and we were lucky enough to be in a lifeboat. Nobody would want you to rock the boat.
No.
It's the last thing you want.
Now, what
But
could we
we are
replace?
attached to a meaning that has.
Yes.
Sorry, Allison.
No, I just have a question. What comes up for you as an alternative? Because I was thinking to myself, what else could I say? Let's say something about innovation. Innovation is welcome.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect metaphor for the way that it's established in society, right?
Mm.
So it's
Mm.
it's much easier to use because it's already there than it is to change it.
Mm.
It takes so much more effort to change it or bring a point to it, and it would just do a disservice to what it's intended for. But I mean, that's just how my mind works, is to look at like the realistic of a metaphor, but then also looking at the metaphoric as realistic.
Mm.
So I have just my internal self will look at it. It's like, well, why would we want someone that's going to rock the boat? If I'm out in the middle of the ocean or during the storm, I'm going to throw that person off. I guess so that's what it is to help guide what situations are appropriate to bring it in.
Mm.
And if it's a nice warm day, you're on a calm lake, you can touch bottom or you're close to shore, right? And you're wondering whether or not to get into the water, rocking the boat's perfect. Oh, and a year probation too. So I thought that was funny. Not funny, just forgot to mention that one. Not that it matters, but so I could rock the boat and they could kick me out and could do nothing about it for a year.
I'd like to circle back to something when I spoke about becoming aware that I had dropped an attachment. For me, that experience is what I identify with as grace, because I can never really identify how come I dropped the attachment. It's everything that happened around the attachment that allowed me to drop it. And I think that is, on a very pragmatic level, got to do with the level and the quality of vibration that I could begin to begin to flow with, begin to ride, begin to be, I guess.
What's your definition of grace? And it might be hard from I hear it, not to put you on the spot, but I was curious with it. My point is that it appears to be a relation to faith.
Jess, I didn't catch the word that you wanted me to define.
Grace.
Grace. Oh.
And here, so it's like, why did I connect it to faith? Because faith it's like belief in something you can't believe.
Mm.
In a roundabout way. And grace is like to be to give. I don't know if it's forgive, but to forgive something you don't understand. It's almost what grace senses to me.
Mm. I haven't thought about it in much detail, maybe, but I think it's just more of my applying it to an experience, applying the word to an experience. And it's a specific I guess for me, my faith is in what I resonate with, in what gets taught about what the universe really is. And it's very rudimentary for me. I don't have a lot of languaging around it. And the universe for me, when you're resonating with the full range, not that I can claim ever to have gotten there, but it's as full as I can get. That for me is being in grace. And to speak to forgiveness, yes, that would be. I have something that I was reading last night on family constellations. And it was a research project that was done in prisons. I wonder if I've got it. No. And I have to put my computer on. I'll come back with it if we've got time, otherwise I'll bring it tomorrow. Okay, yeah, I've got it. It goes like this. So let me I'll just explain. So this guy did a part of his PhD. This was an article that came from the research that he did in doing family constellation work in prisons. And they had a whole lot of themes that came out from it. But the thing that stood out for me the most was forgiveness is compassion based on acceptance of the past, acknowledgement of the existential quality of all people, and a reverence for the vast beauty of life. And I really don't think I've ever read a more comprehensive or beautiful description of forgiveness.
Can you read it one more time for me?
Forgiveness is compassion based on acceptance of the past, acknowledgement of the existential quality of all people, and reverence for the vast beauty of life. And those words would have been workshopped. Right? The author would not have written those words on his own in the way that you do this kind of research.
Yeah.
These would have been the words of the participants. And we talk about being. And being refers to the existential quality. It's broader, but still. It brought to mind for me again the ethic in Tibetan Buddhism. And I'm not saying it's not in the other teachings, it is, but for me, that's where it's kind of prominent, is you value every single person's role. The one teacher said, you look at somebody else and you judge, then you need to give thanks immediately that that is not what you have to live. In some ways, it might sound like a no-brainer, but when you really do that, there's a lot that changes.
The heat of the moment is completely different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, what a great morning. Thank you.
Yes. Before we leave, Heinz,
Mhm.
how is your bird?
Yesterday she tried climbing the cage, but
Hmm.
got halfway there, a little over, and then she had to turn around. So
Wow. That was a
it's
valiant.
getting, it's getting closer, but she won't give up. I think she's
Wow.
too attached to me.
That's what I was thinking too, Heinz. So glad you said it.
It's like she's worried I won't do well without her.
Mm.
But I've
That's
told her
the
it's all
message I
right.
got.
I've told her it's all right.
Good. Keep on telling her. Keep on reminding her there's no separation.
And she's just moving from her body to mine instead.
Yeah.
To just move inside my heart and live there fully.
Yeah. Well, enjoy her while you can in her form. And know that we all think of her, I think, every morning. I certainly thought of her when I heard the owl this morning.
She really enjoys the talks. I've had 3 today. I've had one at 2 a.m. in with the US group from RJ, and then at 9 a.m.
Wow.
with Australia, and then this meeting at 2 o'clock. So Thursday is my big meeting day.
Thank you so much for this morning, everybody. It was wonderful to be with you all.
Thank you. You all have a blessed day and have a good night's sleep, Ellie.
Thank you all. Till next time.
Love and hugs.
Bye.
Okay, love and hugs, everybody. Have a